in this lesson, we're still going to look at calculating distances, but instead of having simple times like in whole numbers, time's not always like that. Sometimes it would be in half hours and 45 minutes and 15 minutes and other things as well, which we'll go into later, like 6 minutes and so on. But for just now, I'm going to look at this idea if the time was not a whole number of hours. Now, in order to do that, what we'd like to do is try and think of some basic ones. So I would copy this into your jotter and we'll try and think about 15, 30 minutes and 45 minutes as a start. I'll go into kind of other sorts of minutes in another lesson. So the first thing to think about is what is 15 minutes as a decimal, because once it's a decimal we can put it into a calculator if needed and do calculations with it much easier than having 15 minutes. So the way to think about it firstly is, what is it as a fraction of an hour? And if you're meeting somebody in 15 minutes, we sometimes don't call it 15 minutes, you sometimes call it a quarter of an hour. Now once we think about that idea, we can think, well, what's a quarter as a decimal? Now, a quarter as a decimal is 0.25. So we're changing minutes into hours, which we're trying to do here. We get a decimal value of 0.25. Now the same with 30 minutes. 30 minutes we sometimes say we'll meet in half an hour. So that's a half. And then we can go from there to what it is as a decimal. Now decimals are good because we can then enter them into calculators if needed. 45 minutes, that would be considered 3/4 of an hour. And again, that would be 0.75 hours. Now, a lot of calculations are done with calculators, but I'm just going to show you how to do it without a calculator if you needed to. For example, multiply by 0.25 or 0.5 or 0.75 if that came up. So I'm going to look at these examples here. So if you're faced with a multiplication by 0.5, all you're really doing is halving the number because you're timesing by a half, so halving it. So a half times 16, that's really a half of 16, so that's just 8. Again, if you're multiplying by 0.25, we know that's a quarter. So you're quartering the number. That would just be 4. 3/4 is slightly more complicated. Get 1/4, which we know is 4, and times it by 3. So 4 times 3 is 12. So that's how to get 3/4. Divide it by 4, and then get your answer. Keep it in your head and times it by 3. Now, if you were to times by 1 point, this would be like 1.5 hours. If something was travelling for 1.5 hours, it would be 1.5. So to times by 1.5, you could certainly write a sum out 1.5 times 8 underneath and do it that way. But there's a quick way to do it. You're just adding on a half of the value basically when you times by 1.5. So it's like 1 times 8, then add on a half of 8. So that's 4. So it's really 8 plus 4. That would give you 12. The times by 2.5 is very similar, except you're starting at 2 times 8, which is 16, then add on a half of 8. So that'll be 16 plus 4, that'll give you 20. And again, to do 3.5 times 8, you're just doing 3 times 8, that's 24, and then add on a half of 8. Well, that's 4 again, so 24 plus 4 is 28. I would practice some of them again, maybe with a calculator next to you and try out your mental maths ability. Some harder ones down here, to times by 1.25, instead of adding on a half, you're doing 1 times 12, which is 12, and adding on a quarter of 12. A quarter of 12 is 3, so you get 12 plus 3, that's 15. Same with this, you're doing 1 times 12, and then you're adding on 3/4 of 12. Now 3/4 of 12, well, 1/4 of 12 is 3, so 3/4 is 9, so you're doing 12 plus 9 basically, which is 21. 2.25, so 2 times 12, 24, and then add on a quarter of 12. So a quarter of 12 is 3, so the answer is 27. 24 plus 3. So these are good ways to improve your mental ability when multiplying by decimals. Okay, let's look at question 3. This is the same exercise as it was before, so I'm going to get you to do question 3 and question 4, but I'm going to show you how to lay it out first. So I'll do 3A first. So what distance are covered by the following? A van travelling for 30 minutes at an average speed of 50 miles per hour. So you can see here we're in miles per hour, so we need to change the minutes into hours. So 30 minutes, That was a half hour, so that was 0.5. So write the formula out, and we're doing 50 times 0.5. So that's a half of 50, which is 25. There we are, 25 miles. And the second one, we've got 1.5 hours. We've got 8 miles per hour, and we've got 1.5 hours. So it's 8 times 1.5. So we've done that in the last screen. That's 8, and then a half of 8, which is 4. That makes 12. There it is, 12 miles. Okay, have a go at these questions. If you do need to use a calculator, then I suppose you could, but try to do it without a calculator. It's 3 and question 4. So pause the video again, have a go at them, and then I'll go over the answers. Okay, so hopefully you paused it, you've tried them, and I'll go over the answers quickly for you, okay? So the first one, we're doing 30 minutes times 50. We did that one before, it was 25 miles. Then we did 8 times 1.5, that gives you 12 miles. Part C is 40 times 2.5, that'll give you 100. 40 times 2 is 80, and then half of 40, which is 20, add it on. This one, 40 times 3.5, which comes out to be 160. And the last one, 300 times 5.5 is 1650 miles. Okay, question 4, last question. So we've got 8 times 0.25, a quarter of 8, that's just 2. Next we've got 24 miles per hour for a quarter, that's a quarter again, so 0.25, that's just 6. We've then got 12 times 1.25, that gives you 15. And D, we've got 40 times 0.75 or 3/4, so that's 30. And then here, last one, we've got 12 times 1.75, so that would be 21.